Welcome to Researching Your Roots. I'm doing a little video. Today I won't be speaking much, but if you follow the video and watch, you will learn how to do this, how to find your ancestors and family tree. Hmm? Mm-hmm. It is, Queenie. It's recording yours too. Pretty voice. But we're whispering. No more. Oh, that's too bad. No more liquids either. Well, I guess I'm done. Throw this away. Thanks. If you wonder what I'm doing now on here, I'm looking for a letter I written by the census person. Notice here, this is an I. Hard to see, but this is an I-N-D, Indian, I-N-D, Indian Territory, T-E-R. It's better to see over here. So that's an I. I'm looking for an O. Here's an O. Person wrote O in Ohio. And then here's I in Indian Territory or Indian Territory. Now, why? Because up here, I'm looking for a family whose last name is spelled I-R-V-A-N. In this census, this looks like an O, but it's really an I. Irvin Frank B. Jesse W. I'm looking for Jesse W.'s parents and siblings. That's why I was moving around the screen. Looking for capital I's and capital O's written by the census taker. The I's that the census taker writes could accidentally look like an I or like an O, in my opinion. Although the O's are very similar. This here is probably S-in-law, meaning sister-in-law, because his wife's last name is Stover, and this person is Dora, D-O-R-A-P, Stover. She's only 15 years old, see? If you come up here, Frank B. Irvin's wife is Sarah J. Stover, sorry. It says she's 25, so. And she had 4 children, 3 living at the time of 1900 census. Children living. 4 born to her, 1 is dead. So she has a son born in 1894, daughter born in 1898, and a son born in 1892. So somewhere between 1892 and 1898, she had a child that passed away. Because that's what that means. I can't tell what this spelling is here. They think it's Trilby. I've never heard of a girl named Trilby. I'm going to say that's an F. That's my opinion. But it could be Trilby. Probably the best way to do it is to go to the 1900 census, since this daughter is only 1 year old. 1910 census, if she's still alive when they take the 1910 census, will reveal to me the spelling of this child's name, hopefully. John F. You see this F here? I'm thinking this might be an F right here. Might be Philby, but I don't know why you would call a daughter Philby. Maybe it's Tilly, T-I-L-L, or Philly. I'm not sure, but I mean, that does look like a B right there. But that could be 2 L's and an E right here, and a Y. So we're not 100% sure. And then we have Jesse W. here, and that's spelt differently than he really spelt it at the time. It's common for census takers to misspell names. A lot of the people that gave the information didn't even know how to read or write very well, if at all. So that's what I'm doing here with all this information. Now I'm going to shrink it so we can get the places they were born, places their parents were born. Copy and paste that to my document for the Irvin family. All right, let's go backwards. Here's a 1910 census for Jesse W. Irvin. Hopefully this is the same person. It looks like it. 1892 was the birth. Horatio is where they were living on Locksburg Road, Clear Creek, Sevier, Arkansas. He's still single at 18. Parents are Benjamin F. and Sarah Irvin, IRVAN. John F. Irvin. Trilby, it says. You got me. So I'm going to click on this and see what other documents come up. No idea why anyone would name their child Trilby. And where that comes from. But it looks like Trilby is the correct spelling of the first name. In 1920, we have a Trilba. So I really don't know for sure. Let's look on this gravestone. It looks like this woman's name is Trilby Nickerson. That's her maiden or her married name. And we're going to blow this up so we can see it big. Yeah, right there it is. Trilby. Trilby. Shocking to me, but nevertheless, the eyes have it. I can see it, and that was her name. So I'm going to take, copy and paste that in the document over here so that everybody knows that's the real correct spelling of the first name. Although it's unusual, it is correct. And I can see that this particular person's information on Find a Grave is attached to Benjamin Franklin Irvin, Sarah Rachel Jane Stover Irvin. And we come down here. You see that one of her brothers was Jesse William, John Franklin, that's your John F. And all these other people are later born after them. And there's another child somewhere that was probably born before 1900 who passed away before 1910. Actually was born before 1900 and died before 1900. Because in this image of the census we got earlier, if you look at it, it says children here. And then on the census, although you can't see it, it says children living at the time of 1900 census. 4 were born to Sarah and Franklin, but only 3, Jesse, John, and Trilby, were living at the time of the 1900 census. Between 1900 and 1910, they had more children. We saw that in the 1910 image here. Go back. So what I'm going to do is shrink the screen again. Put it down to like 80% size. And then I'm going to get rid of the outside boundary here so I can get more on the screen. Push this up to the top. And I still don't get all the kids, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it back to 100% on the size of the image. And I'm just going to take 2 or 3 copies of this, 2 or 3 print screens of this information. This is the first part of it at the top. Then I'll go down a little way here. And let's see if I got the parents in here. Yeah, I got the parents and the husband, so I'll go back and just get the siblings and the children. And in order to get the half siblings, I can make this screen bigger by doing this. And then I can change looks like I can get it all in here. And that allows me to get all the siblings, children, and half siblings for that daughter, who's Jesse William Irvin's sister, who shows us the parents of Jesse William Irvin and herself and her children. And then there's some half siblings. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I believe must be that Jesse William, one of his parents must have had another spouse at some time. Thank you, Janet. Mm-hmm. So we'll work on that in a while. Print this screen, then go back to the smaller image and make sure my magnification is at 100, which is supposed to be normal magnification. And now I've got all that information from Find a Grave to use in my document. I'm going to click on this Jesse William link here. And that takes me to a gravestone that I already have an image of, and this information I have. It says here that Jesse had more than one wife, so we got that information previously. These are his parents here, and his wives. He had 3. Siblings, children, half siblings, so this is probably correct information. That's why I copied and pasted it so that I can go check it and make sure it's correct. This is probably all correct. So now I'm going to go to Benjamin. That's his dad. See what we've got here available. We've got a couple 3 pictures. We've got some written information. Could be from an obituary or whatever. Or it could just be historical information from whoever put all this in here and Find a Grave. Pictures, so I'm just going to start copying and pasting all this and put it in my document so that I don't have to have Find a Grave open to research to see if this is correct. And if it is correct, I can keep it in my document. If it's not, I'll just go into the document and delete it out. Another thing I like to do is just go in here like this, copy and paste all of this, highlight this and copy it, all this writing here, some kind of biography or something, copy and paste it into my document. I know I got part of it up here, and then I go here and I click on that and it changes the size. I like to do this so that the lines are closer to one another so I don't take up so much space on a document. Looks like there's some misspellings. He also didn't believe in modern conveniences. Okay. So in order to save space, I'm just going to this is probably porch. This is the correct spelling of the last name. So I'm checking for spelling errors and changing the spacing here between the paragraphs so that I can take up less space on my document. It used to be I would print these out and put them in files, but I don't do that anymore. I just save my documents and put them in files on my computer, desktop or C drive, and then I also email them to myself and I put them on flash drives and portable hard drives that have greater space for storing digital information. And then I'll have more than just the copy I have on my computer. I'll have a copy in my email account or 2, and copy on flash drives, which are smaller storage devices. And then there's larger ones called portable hard drives. And they plug in similarly as flash drives or thumb drives do, but often they have a little cord attached, and it's kind of like a box. It looks similar to the size of a small phone. It's usually rectangular, and they have much more storage for digital information. So I've kept this information because I'm pretty sure from what I've seen, this is probably correct. The people that are on Find a Grave and whoever put this information in has an awful lot of information. And I'll just go through this at a later time when I have more time. And if anything's not correct, I'll just eventually get rid of it and keep whatever is correct, if anything. But a lot of times when you're researching, you'll store stuff in your shoebox on genealogy websites, or you'll electronically attach it to your information, or you can copy and paste, put them in documents. So that's what I'm doing. Now I'm going to go down here past that information where we have some information here on his children and spouses. He also wound up married to 2 women and had several children. It shows just one parent, a father, a couple of siblings. And it could be that's all the information they've been able to find. I can understand that because this person was born, Benjamin Franklin was born 1871. They should be able to find other census records and things that might be able to show if there's another parent, the mom, or however many wives his father had, Benjamin Franklin's Irvin's father. So I'll probably do that in a later time, and maybe not on this video. So there's another picture of him, it looks like. Make it a little bigger, kind of hard to see him. That's a nice image. Got himself an old pipe there, and it's like some kind of hoe, probably a hoe, maybe a rake or shovel. It's probably in the late 1890s. That's about when his first child was born, 1892. It's like a farm. Most people, farmers. Nice picture. That's the one of him older there, Benjamin Franklin Irvin. There's his gravestone. I'll go ahead and get a print screen of that and put it in the document. And I go Control End, that takes me down here, and put that there. And you can make these smaller by clicking on them. And when you see these little circles, you click on that little circle there with your cursor, that, and then you move the mouse button that you turn away from you or towards you, whichever way makes it smaller. I have to use a little pad, so what I'm doing is just making it small enough to fit on here so I don't take up too much space, but that gives me a little more space on this page before I get to the bottom. I'll probably make it a little bigger. And of course, with that information above this picture that is typed, if I want to, I can highlight all this information. Like I could highlight just this paragraph, and I could change the size of the letters if I wanted to save even more space. But I have trouble reading. My eyes are not very well good, so I have trifocals, so I'll probably leave it at this size, at least, for my own use. Control End. I still have a little bit of space on this page to go, so I'm just showing you ways that I copy and paste information from the internet into documents, and how I can save space, make them bigger and smaller and stuff like that. You can do it other ways. I'm sure there are other ways to do it. Looks like another picture of Benjamin Franklin. It's a very nice picture. Wearing a hat, he's got his overalls on, very nice overalls. and a coat. And this looks like maybe a headstone that was made out of cement until they were able to get him another one, perhaps. This happens a lot. Either people didn't have the money, or perhaps they didn't want to spend the money on it. So they often did this. I have some relatives in other parts of Arkansas, Goins relatives, that did this. Later, the other relatives would get them another gravestone. See if I can make this a little smaller. So, B.F. Irvin, March 22nd, 1971. I think that says April 14th, 1961, to rest. And that looks like they poured cement into some kind of container. And then when it was dry, they just popped it out and set it right there. They may have even made it right here on the side of the grave, perhaps, if that's where they got this. Not uncommon, especially between like 1900 and 1960s or 70s. And then they started going to metal, started making metal headstones, just little flat metal things. Those are pretty inexpensive compared to granite stone and other things, and marble. This is a very, very cheap way to make a pretty durable and long-lasting headstone out of some really nice, probably heavy-duty construction cement there. You would literally have to purposefully bust this thing up. It's going to last for a long time. Normal erosion and weather and stuff like that, it's going to take a long time to wear down a block of cement like this. So, although not necessarily, if you're trying to spend a lot of money to show how much you love your deceased relative, this is probably not the way to go. But, obviously a good way to do it if you don't have the money at the time or don't want to spend the money. A lot of men are that way, I think. They say, don't waste your money on nice coffin or anything like that. A lot of men are that way. I guess some women are. I really don't know. I'm a man, so I'm speaking as a man. I can't remember what other information I got on him, but I'm not going to copy and paste any more information on him. I'm just going to get the link, copy and paste the URL, and put it here next to this gravestone thing. So you can kind of fit quite a few images on here if you kind of shrink them a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and get the link for that page on the URL from Find a Grave. I just don't feel like spending the time copying and pasting all this information in here, so I'm just going to do the URL. And I can go get this later, because right now I'm probably not going to spend the time while I'm making this video to put all this information in. But we are working on him, the dad of Jesse William Irvin. Depending on your accent in American English, a lot of people might think this is Irwin, Irving, or Irvin with an I or an E, or an E over here. So there's all kinds of different spellings. Why they decided to spell it I-R-V-A-N, I have no idea. I really don't know. So I have relatives with the last name Keen, spelled it K-E-E-N, and some added an E to the end. Some people spelled it K-E-A-N. There's all different kinds of spellings. You have to remember, a lot of people were illiterate in the sense they didn't spell well or didn't spell at all. Maybe didn't read or write either, or maybe they could do their signature or a few words. Probably could recognize, numbers, telephone numbers, maybe add and subtract a little bit. And so it's quite possible this is just a misspelling and they just decided to leave it that way. Or maybe there were some people that spelled it differently in town that they didn't like and they didn't want to share the same spelling. I mean, there's all kinds of weird reasons. But I'll have to look that up and see why, because it's possible their ancestors may not have spelt it Irvan. So as I go back, I may find that it's spelled differently. And so you need to prove, you need to kind of check into these spellings because you want to make sure that they're spelling it correctly. And one way I know is by going to the right here, they spell it Irvan on this picture. It's pretty obvious. So somebody knew how to spell his name. Then here we get a different headstone. It looks like a little bit of granite here, small one. Spelled very obviously Irvan. And that's kind of unusual, to be totally honest. But I'm going to figure that out later as I go back. For example, it shows his dad here, John Calvin Irvin. Going to click on him real fast. And we notice that his headstone here is spelled the same way. I'm going to go ahead and make that bigger. Irvan. So somebody is claiming that's how his dad spelled the name. Now, it could be that John Calvin's dad spelt it the same way or might have been spelt differently. So it's just something you want to keep your eye on when you notice people's last names when they're spelled a little differently than what you're used to seeing. But, you want to find proof that they spell it Irvan, and this is how I find it. I've got census records that spell it this way. I've got headstones. I've got descendants that are writing in Find a Grave and putting information in here that are also verifying that this is correct. Nobody changed this. Nobody added a note or anything. So I'm pretty sure that's correct. And it's really nice that Benjamin Franklin Irvin's dad has a picture here. Cane, beard, mustache. This is the way people dressed in those days. He was born in 1837, and he lived to 1921. He lived almost 100 years. Was probably in the Civil War as well, or at least lived through it, if he didn't fight in it. And how interesting that his headstone is made out of cement. John Irvin, age 83. It says Civil War vet. There you go. Now, it could be that he was buried and maybe he had a wooden cross or something. Maybe his gravestone was destroyed. He's buried in 1921, so 1921, by that time they had cement like this. He died in 21. I'm sorry if I said something else. But here you notice Irvan. So the guy was probably around a few years before 1921 when he passed and would have verified how to spell his last name. So we can go back one more generation and see that this spelling is still correct for this particular individual. But you can note, I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bigger. And I know I said a minute ago I didn't feel like dealing with all this, but this is just really interesting. You might get off on tangents like this when you're doing research in genealogy. It's not uncommon. Don't know if that's irritating to you guys. If it is, I apologize. Please fast forward. So, that I'll probably just get his link here, his URL, and put that under his gravestone, and then I can go and get that information when I'm working on that. Back to Benjamin Franklin. I'm going to read through this information really quick just to see what it says. Okay. We see that he was born on 26th of March, 1871. That's on his gravestone, so it's probably true. So I'm going to copy and paste it and go to my Roots Magic program where I store the information for these individuals who are my ancestors and put that in there. That's his birth date. If I find that that's wrong, I can always go in and change it later. And he was named after famous Benjamin Franklin. A lot of my relatives, ancestors are named after Benjamin Franklin. That's very common. It says he was born in Crawford County. A lot of my ancestors are from there. That's in Arkansas, United States of America. Excuse me. Go back and find it. And we saw on 2 gravestones that this is the death date for him. I can always go verify that by finding other records if they're online in Ancestry.com or MyHeritage or RootsWeb, or I can even send for an actual copy of his death certificate to make sure that's correct. But I'm pretty sure this is correct so far, based on my research. It says he died in a different place, Williamson, Sevier County, Arkansas, United States. I'm going to copy and paste this, but I'm not going to keep all the words when I paste it in because I don't use the word county. So I'll get rid of the word county because we know that in genealogy, at least most people who are familiar with it, know that the first word we put is the city or town, and in the middle that's the county, and then the state, and then the country. And I have to type in the country, United States. I used to put the burial stuff, but I don't do that anymore. But you can if you want. So now I have his dad, and I'm going to add his mom. That would be Jesse William Irvin's mom. And I go backwards 1. And we see that his mom's information is here. And from looking at a couple of censuses, I know his mom's name is Sarah R. And these people say it's Sarah Rachel. On her death, on her headstone here, the grave, they've listed her maiden name, Sarah Stover Irvin. So we know that much information. That's sufficient, really. But somebody thinks her name is Rachel Jane in the middle. In order to prove that, I have to look up more information on the internet, probably, or go to Crawford County or Sevier County, Arkansas's county places where they keep the records at the courthouses and other places, and look and see. Maybe there's a death certificate I could find, or maybe a late birth certificate where she went and needed a birth certificate to get married or something like that, or to buy a car or get a job, whatever. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and put that in. Sarah Rachel. I think one of our census records back here shows that her middle name was, the initial was R. So I can go back here and check that out. It says Sarah J. Okay, so we know the Jane is probably correct. I thought there was an R. That's the 1900 one. What we can do is go back here and click back here a few. Click on Sarah Irvin in Ancestry.com. Here we have a J initial. Down here in another document, it has a J. Another one. These are probably the children's Social Security applications. Here we have Arkansas Death Index, says Sarah R. Irvin. I don't know if that's her. That is in Sevier County, Arkansas. And you notice this is a misspelling or a mistype. Let's see. That's interesting that they would have misspelled that. Go back up here. We have Irvin, Irving, Irvin with an I-N, Irvine. and she seems to have been stuck in here as a misspelled person. But I don't know that that's her. Here we got Sarah R. Irvin. So I'm going to go backwards here. See if I can ever find it. E-R-V, I-R-V. Oh, that's interesting. I guess I'm not sure why that's spelled like that. It may not be hers. So sometimes the computer is wrong when it looks through different things that are online and tries to attach different documents it thinks belong to the person you've clicked on. So really I need to send for a death certificate, something like that, or go up to Arkansas and dig around in the court records. At this point, I feel comfortable probably putting Sarah J, since I'm not getting too much help here. Here we have a marriage document. That's interesting. BF Ivan. So it says here I can send for the original. So somebody probably read it, and whoever wrote it either forgot to put the R in there between the I and the V, or maybe the person that read it and typed this information in thought it was IVAN, and it very well may be spelt that way. But I have a feeling this is what we're looking for, BF Irvin, IVAN. We know they were from Crawford and Sevier counties in Arkansas. There's Sarah Stover. This is probably their marriage information, so I'm going to save it. So I know pretty much for sure her name was Sarah Stover. And I'm pretty sure that one of her initials between her first and last name was J. So I feel comfortable with that at this point. Let me look at this document. Okay, that just shows Ben as the first person on the information. So I'm just kind of looking around trying to figure out what Sarah's full name is. People that wrote her information in Find a Grave say that her middle names are Rachel Jane. So it's possible it was Jane. This says she died in 29 October 1915. That's on the actual death headstone. I'm sorry, I keep saying death stone. It's a headstone, gravestone. So let me go back to that that death record they had here on the index. Click on that again. This says she died in the year 1915, October 29th. So they have Sarah R. Irvin. So it's possible that she was a Sarah Rachel Jane Irvin. This is incorrect spelling. Why? I have no idea. Probably misspelled by somebody or misread or whatever. Okay, so it could be that her name is Sarah Rachel Jane Irvin. But the thing is, I have no second document to prove that the R is Rachel or the J is Jane. But I do have enough evidence that she has the first name Sarah, and she has two initials, R and J. So at this point, without getting more documentation, I feel good about typing in her name as Sarah R. J. Stover. Okay, and that's all you really need at this point. And a lot of people like a perfect record, so I've got to dig a little more to make sure that Rachel Jane is correct, because some people make mistakes, even when they're passing information down from family to family, generation to generation. We do know the information for her birth and death. We have it, death information here, so I can just type that in from memory, 29 October. And that's on her gravestone too. So we know that's probably correct or very close to the actual death date. since I don't actually have a copy of her death certificate. And it's possible when they looked at the death certificate, they made a mistake in the spelling of her last name. They may also have made a mistake in this information here, but she probably died in October 1915 for sure. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to this gravestone. Open that up. And that's big enough at this point for me to copy and paste into a document. And I will Control N to the bottom and Control V to paste. I don't know why that is, but that's the way to do it. And Control S is to save. I'm going to copy and paste the birth date that's here. And even though it's white letters here, when I put it in the database, it will turn into black letters. And now I've got to find out where she was born. This says Crawford County, Arkansas. How do I prove that? Well, I can go here, and I can go to the 1900 census, and it says here she was born in Arkansas. So I know she was born in Arkansas. She's living in Crawford here in the 1900 census. Then I can go open up this 1800 census. It says she was born in 1874. So wherever they're living right here, whatever county this is probably the county she was born in. Not necessarily. This says they were living in Washington County, Arkansas. I don't know for sure if she was born in Crawford, so I'm just going to put Arkansas. I know earlier I put in Benjamin Franklin Irvin's information off of Find a Grave without double checking it. So I should probably go back and do that. But I will do that another time. It says here death place was Sevier County, Arkansas. And if I go back to this is the death record index. So they took the information off the death certificate and they put this information into an index so that people could look at it, and then they would get this number here, or all these numbers. They could either send for the certificate or they could send for the microfilm tape and look at it if they didn't want to pay. It's a lot cheaper to rent and have them mail you the microfilm roll or even buy it and keep it than to get a certificate sometimes. Some copies of death certificates cost you $40, $50 or more, depending on the state. So I'm going to go ahead and save this in my shoebox. So we know she died in Sevier County, Arkansas. We don't know for sure what town. So I'm just going to put that in here. Sevier, Arkansas, United States. And I'm not going to put her burial information. And I don't put periods after the initials because I'll go in later and just type in the letters when I find the correct spelling of their middle names. That's the way I do it. Some people put initials or periods after the initials. I think we actually have a document that shows when Ben and Sarah were married. So I'm going to go back to my document here and go backwards a bit. I thought I had a marriage record for them. If it's not for them, it was for somebody else. Let me check. Or maybe I just looked at it online, but I didn't copy and paste it. That's probably what it is. Let me go back to Ancestry.com. Let me see if there's a marriage record here. I thought there was. Okay, here it is right here. For Sarah Stover and B.F. Irvin. It says they were married in Crawford County, Arkansas on 11 August 1891. So that's what I'll put down. And I have it saved here, and that's good enough for now. Copy and paste that date. I will go into Ben's. That's where they put the marriage for some reason. It doesn't really matter, I guess, unless you want to make it an issue. And then put the date there, and I remembered that it was Crawford County, Arkansas, United States. I can click on that, and I'm done. Now I have the main events and dates for these two individuals, birth and death information, and their marriage information. I didn't put the burial information in, even though I have it, because it's really not necessary, but it's a source. A lot of people put the information in, and there is room in the database here for that. But in order to save time, I quit doing that. So I have this information on Jesse William Urban's parents, and you see how I proved that these were most likely his parents. Excuse me. I would say 90 to 99% certain these are his parents. So I'm just going to go with that information. And of course, this is for the Latter-day Saints. This is the information on temple work. I know his dad was John Calvin Irvin. I don't know what Dunn is all about. A lot of people do different things on these family history, genealogy softwares. So, but this information, Benjamin Franklin Irvin's the same, date of birth and place and death are the same. Two different towns for death, place, but that doesn't matter. We do have the same county, state, and country. I know his dad's name was John Calvin, and the people that gave me the information about his dad didn't have any information on a wife or mother, wife for John or a mother for Ben. So, but this is probably correct or very close. Then we have the same wife on whoever put this information in. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, which is going to give me the opportunity to match the information that is in Family Search with my information on Roots Magic. I'm going to go ahead and go with that because it's almost exactly the same. Then you can click on Share Data and see this information. And you notice they have the same marriage date here, so that's good. That's really good. That helps me verify that it's pretty much the same people. But I'm not gonna copy or match any of this other information down here, even though I know most of it's the same, because I want to research to find out about this Mary person here. And then I've put in Sarah R.J. Stover, and they just have Sarah Stover. We do have the same birth year, so I can match those two people like that. And then Jesse William Irvin, same person. I just have the last name in caps, all capital letters. So I'm going to go ahead and match those two. And I know he had a sister name. Well, it tells me I have to merge records. I'm not going to do that. At this point, I'll do that later. But I do know he had a sister named Violet and a sister named Trilby and a brother named John F., which is probably John Franklin. I thought I saw Jefferson something. So this is probably all correct information. And I'll get around to matching all that up later. And then I go to Sarah here. And this is for members of the church, my church I go to. And we see that the information is similar, close enough. And we can match this up. You okay?
Yeah.
I thought you went, oh, like that. It won't let me match because I have to go in and merge. I don't know why they've changed that, but that's the way it is. Okay, so that looks like that's good. And it looks like his parents' temple work's been done. So I'm going to go ahead into the mom, and I'm going to click and copy this ordinance information. That I have in my Roots Magic and put it in there. And that's good enough for me at this point. So that individual's been done, and I'll go back to Ben and also check his ordinances and copy and paste those into Roots Magic so I have that information. I haven't linked the parents yet, so I'm not going to do that, but I have linked the spouse. And that's for those of you who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and that do temple work for your ancestors. Let's check this. What's going on with this guy? Let's see how many times that'll come up before I close. Okay, don't know what's going on here. This is probably the same person, so I'll go ahead and match. They want me to merge it, so I'm not going to do that at this time. So something's going on with the program here, and it's messing up, so I'm just going to close it. And I'm going to save my Roots Magic, because when I interact with Roots Magic, between Roots Magic and Family Search, there's always all kinds of computer language incompatibilities and trouble communicating, and so a lot of times I have trouble with the websites and the program on my computer. So now I have everything saved. I won't lose anything, hopefully. Then I'm going to try to connect again with Family Search and see what's going on with this guy. Evidently, there's still another problem. So at this point, what I'll probably do is close this. I already saved it. So I'm going to shut down that document. Okay, so once again, you see I've taken a person who's an ancestor of mine, who married a Goins, who's a more direct blood relative of mine, to the person that she married, and she's one of 2 or 3 wives that he had. And I found his parents, Jesse William Irvin, his parents. And for temple ordinance purposes, I see that the parents are done, and it looks like Jesse may have been done. I'm not sure about Cora Lee, but those are the things I was doing tonight for Jesse Williams. Is it Jesse William? I think it's Jesse William. Jesse William. And Cora Lee. So that's how I was able to verify who his parents were. I used some of the information from one of his sisters and from Find a Grave from Ancestry.com, a little bit from FamilySearch.org, and that's how I was able to get the information I was looking for to help to fill in some of the blanks that I had and to verify information I already had on Cora Lee Goins and at least one of her husbands. I think she may have had another husband also. So I hope that was helpful to you. I didn't talk a lot at the beginning, but some of the stuff I was doing at the end, I went ahead and spoke for that purpose to help make it more